For tomorrow morning so we can get started at 9, if you could get maybe ready at about 10 to 9, because it does seem to take us a few minutes, and we'll see how the technology goes tomorrow. We will, sorry for the delegation, but we will take a roll call just because we are meeting for a while. So I'll turn it over to Shannon to take roll call.
Thank you, Chair. So when I call your name, if you could just please unmute yourself, or if you do have video showing, you can just wave at me and say here if you're unmuting. Director Kloofchuk? You're muted, but I can see you. Director Doyle?
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Gay? Sorry, Director Graham, are you here? Director Graham, I see you, but I can't hear you. Are you with us right now?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you. Director McCormick?
I am here.
Thank you. Director McCarricker?
Yep.
Yep, I see you. Director Miller?
Here.
Thank you. Director Pratt?
Here.
Thank you. Director Quilica?
Here.
Director Reinhardt is here. Director Sosnowski?
Here.
Director Sturzer?
Here.
Yeah, I see him.
Director Walter is here. Director Wilkie, are you here?
Yes, present.
Thank you. Director Wilkes?
Here.
And that's everybody.
Thank you very much. So, Directors, are there any late agenda items this afternoon? Okay, hearing none.
That the agenda for the Governance and Regional Services Committee meeting be adopted.
Get a mover. Director Miller moved. Seconder, Director Wilkes, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, anybody not opposed? Yeah, anybody not opposed?
Or, no, anybody is opposed. Is anybody opposed?
Is anybody opposed? That's the word I was looking for. Hearing none, the motion's carried.
Item 4.1, that the minutes of the Governance and Regional Services Committee meeting held on April 2nd be adopted as circulated.
Director Pratt moved. Director Sturzer seconds. Discussion? Any opposition? Hearing or seeing none, motion is carried.
Okay, so next we have our delegations and invited presentations. With us up first is Ingrid Lippa, the contract researcher with Columbia Basin Rural Development Institute. She's going to speak on the RDK Economic Development Applied Research Project, background and update.
Ingrid, are you with us?
I am here and I'm going to share my screen.
Great, thank you. We can hear you well.
Excellent. All right, so let me just fire up this presentation. Super. All right, so can everybody see the cover slide?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so thanks for this opportunity to provide a project update. This is on the RDI's Employment Lands and Investment Readiness Applied Research Project for the Regional District. And just to say, I'm gonna be moving very quickly since there's just 10 minutes. So this particular project is happening under the larger umbrella of the RDI's Local Government Economic Development Research and Capacity Building Project that was initiated last year. And it's funded through the BC Rural Dividend Grant, Columbia Basin Trust, as well as the 3 regional districts in the Columbia Basin Kootenay Boundary region. So as we all know, nothing has been left untouched by COVID-19, and we are all course adjusting in response to a world that is decidedly less certain than the past. This project is no exception. But let me just walk you through where we're at. The project, as originally conceived, had 3 main deliverables, and these were to produce an employment lands inventory featuring industrial, commercial, and agricultural lands in the region, and to prepare corridor level investment readiness assessments for Elk Valley, Columbia Valley, and Southeast Kootenay corridors, and to develop, there's a smaller portion here in terms of collateral, marketing collateral, or templates that could potentially fill a gap or need in investment readiness. So let's just look at progress to date. I'm going to very shortly take you into the actual draft lands inventory. And so there's only two things I wanted to say before heading into that inventory. And the first thing is that we have looked at a process for updating this inventory, and I know that there's been interest in, well, what would that cost and what would that look like? And so we've estimated, to be able to keep this inventory up to date by updating it twice a year, that it's in the ballpark of about $300 to $400 per year, based on the 9 jurisdictions in the East Kootenay. So that would be on a per jurisdiction basis. And the other thing that I just want to mention before we dive in is that this inventory can be linked or embedded into any website, any ECDEV page that you have locally. It will be uploaded to the BC Economic Atlas. So just to say, this can show up in many places. So with that, I'm going to just hop out the lands inventory here. And I have to actually end show here for a moment. Okay, and okay, so this is the cover page for the land inventory. So it is a work in progress. Still things happening in the background, but I think this is robust enough to give you an idea of what is being created here. So can everybody see this page? Thumbs up.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Welcome to RDEK Employment Lands.
Yep, that's
Now
it.
we've got a map.
Yeah, now we've got a map. Fantastic. Just good to check in with the audience. So as you come in, you get the map view, and I just want to give you, really quick orientation to the navigation. On the left side, you have all the different layers. I'm actually going to click on the municipal boundaries so that when we zoom in, it's more apparent. Up here, we can put in links, helpful links. So right now we've got BC assessment data, parcel map BC, and Imagine Kootenay up in this top boundary. In fact, you know what? I'm just gonna grab the spotlight here. You might actually can you see the red dot? That's probably a little easier now to follow my mouse. Yeah, right. And there's other links that we can put in there. You can filter if you're looking for certain kinds of land. If you're looking for agricultural land, for particular size, or commercial land, there's a filter there. And let's see, what was the other thing I wanted to point out before we dive in? Because that would be the main thing. So let's just go, there's the bookmarks. And so we're going to go into Cranbrook just to get a close-up example of what's happening. And so if I zoom in into Cranbrook, and let's say I'm somebody that's interested in industrial land in the south part here, I can click on a particular parcel, and it will show me some basic information about the parcel. And the idea here really is to just show enough information that will lead to picking up the phone or going to the local government economic development website. And so you can see right up top here, you send an email. So this would go to the ECDEV rep. It would take you to the bylaw if you want to learn more about what's going on, or it'll take you to the local ECDEV webpage. And then there's some basic information here about the size, is it vacant, what we know about the ownership, distance to servicing, distance to highways, ports of entry, and so on. All of this is as the crow flies right now. But again, just it's a little nugget. The idea is really to drive folks to either email or pick up the phone. I'm just going to go over to Elkford to show a couple of other kind of neat things that have come up in the development process. So here we are in Elkford, and Elkford asked us to include development permit areas. So if I click in here, right now you've just seen the blue boundaries come up. So this shows us wildfire DPAs, for example. Right, there's also floodplain DPAs and others that are available here. That's a layer that can be turned on or off. And you may be wondering about the red flags. So these are properties or parcels that your jurisdiction could highlight for investors. And I'm just going to wait for that to come in. So for example, Elkford said, bringing attention right to certain properties. So this is an example of the kind of thing that can be included here. Short description and again, driving folks to make contact. We can include a web link in here if you want to create a landing page for a project. So that's just some of the other possibilities here. And lastly, I'm going to head up to Invermere. And the reason I'm heading up to Invermere at this point is that another thing we've been able to do is integrate Imagine Kootenai's investment opportunity feed. And so these little green flags that you're seeing are investment Kootenai opportunities. Oops, just going to zoom in a little further.
Ingrid, I'm just going to jump in. I'm not seeing any of this.
Yeah, so there's a link. Is that Al? Or no, that's Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Yeah, so there is a link in your presentation that would take you to the map that I'm showing right now.
The one that says live tour of Draftlands inventory?
Yeah.
So I have to click on that link?
Correct, and then that will take you into the inventory that I'm showing right now.
Oh, okay.
So needless to say, the investment opportunity from Imagine Kootenai, you click on it, you get information, and it takes you to the Imagine Kootenai website. And I'd certainly be prepared to walk you through this offline, Jerry, if you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. All right. So that's the inventory, and yeah, I'm gonna hop back out of this and go back into the presentation. So it gives you a flavor of what's there, and I'll talk about next steps in a moment. But before that, I'd just like to go and talk a little bit about the other key part of the project, which is the investment readiness assessment. And the main points here is that we were actually able to use the new provincial framework that's being developed by Jobs, Trades and Training. It's still in development, and given the change in the world, we've adapted it and can continue to adapt it to reflect a stronger focus on recovery. We're looking at doing about 10 economic development interviews with about 10 economic development stakeholders in each corridor. So that would be a cross section of economic development practitioners, local government, and business. And again, while investment readiness may be taking the back seat to economic recovery for the foreseeable future, I would say, I would just submit that a lot of the provincial framework does address items that may nonetheless be germane considerations in recovery. And the other thing I just want to say is the last thing we want to be is tone deaf in this work. So there's enough of that already happening in some areas. So we welcome any insights or guidance from you that will help us position this work appropriately. So this is just broadly speaking the provincial framework that we're working with. It's divided into 5 components. And we will be really integrating some of the economic recovery considerations into one, the preparation, the groundwork for investment capacity and strategy, into 4, the business retention, recovery and expansion efforts, and number 5, the infrastructure and amenities necessary for business and investment. All right. And just moving on very quickly, the support for corridor level marketing collateral. At this stage, given that we're living in a highly digital reality and that companies like Local Intel and Townfolio are working with a lot of local governments and economic development initiatives to bring basic community profile and economic profile data into, to make it readily available. Our suggestion with this is actually to take this small bit of funding in the project and integrate it, use it to integrate the employment lands inventory into Imagine Kootenai, but certainly open to other suggestions. So in terms of next our hope is to complete the employment lands inventory by June, but there's several caveats on that. So that'll really depend on both, I'm going to say capacity at RDI as well as in all of the respective local government jurisdictions. to complete like a data check validation before this goes live. And also, the invitation is there to provide short descriptions of any lands that you wish to feature. And yeah, and then, confirmation of a subscription-based updating service. In terms of the investment readiness assessment, that's now an ethics review. That's a standard part of doing work through an academic institution, as I discovered. And we'll be starting to roll that out towards the end of May. And that is, I believe, all I have to share with you at this point. So really, I'm going to open it up for questions at this point. It's been, wonderful to be able to update you on the project and what we've done so far and where we're headed.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, and you captured a lot of information in 10 minutes, so well done on that. So the first speaker I've got on my list is Director McCormick, so go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair. Great presentation, Ingrid. It's great to see how far this project has come. I have two questions. The first has to do with the interviews that you were making reference to. What is the purpose of those interviews?
Right. So so with an investment readiness assessment, there's a framework of questions. And so the purpose of those interviews is to ask those questions. And again, we're adapting the JTT's framework for a quarter level investment readiness assessment. And that's the primary vehicle for data gathering.
Okay. Can you just give me an example?
An example of a question?
Yeah, exactly. I'm still not clear on exactly what that is.
Okay. Yeah. So
sorry to be a little thick on that.
No, all good. I mean, that's why we're here, right? To make clarifications.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna grab the province's framework here. And so, for example, the kind of questions that you might see, I mean, some of them are just straight ahead yes, no questions like, our community has completed an economic development strategic planning process. We'd be looking at asking that at a corridor level. We have connections with outside partners and programs that will help us fund and guide our investment attraction efforts. So some of these are kind of more yes, no questions. Some of them offer an opportunity to provide a little bit more information, like, oh yeah, we have the relationship with those partners, what partners, so that we can look at sort of broadly from the perspective of the economic development practitioners, local government, and business, to get that 360. And then all these interviews are completely confidential, so we're not going to be attributing anything inside of these reports.
Okay. The second question. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So the integration with Imagine Kootenay, what is the expected kind of path forward for IK?
Well, that's a very good question. So we know right now that they've got another year's worth of funding that takes them through to end of fiscal of this year. And after that, it's unknown. I know that there's efforts going on to look, get funding to keep Imagine Kootenay going. So, and really, I'm not the best person to speak about that.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking the question is because if there is an uncertain future for it, spending the money to integrate to it, maybe, may not be that wise a thing.
Yep, point well taken. And so, we're very, we're certainly open to hearing other ideas. It is a very limited budget. So, but yes, open to other suggestions.
Okay. Thanks, Ingrid.
I've got Director Klobuchuk next on the list. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Chair. So actually, just a follow up to Director McCormick's question, how much of the budget do you think it'll require to integrate, to bring, as you have done in the employment lands, into the IK platform? Like, do you think, is it expensive? What do you expect
Yeah.
it to be for the budget?
Yeah, so we have not had a formal conversation. So we've integrated from Imagine Kootenai into the employment lands inventory. We haven't had that conversation around budget the other way yet. So yeah.
Okay. And follow up, Chair, if I may?
Yes, by all means.
So if you don't use Imagine Kootenai, then what would be the digital space to have this information reside?
Right. So, I mean, the digital space would be anybody who wants to link to this. You know, it'll be available at RDK. It could be available through RDI. But again, through linking or embedding, it could be available on any of the ECDev pages that are currently present in the East Kootenai.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kolica is next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ingrid. I guess I have a little bit of a flag too with the reference to Imagine Kootenai. I know as some communities aren't using that as their platform. They've opted out of that subscription service for whatever reason. We know the future is certain, and I know Director Klovetek is the current chair of that board, so I'm sure she can speak to it if she can. But if the digital platform that you're talking about is really just giving all of our own unique platforms that do this a link to embed, why would we A, mention Imagine Kootenai by name, and B, set aside funds specific to support that relationship with Imagine Kootenai rather than our own regional versions of Imagine Kootenai? I know our own chamber is creating their own version of it. They're launching it next week, and I can foresee us certainly removing ourselves from Imagine Kootenai probably. So that's up for discussion, of course, but so I'm curious as to know why you've named Imagine Kootenai.
Yeah, well, that has been probably one of the most concrete ideas that has come forward so far. And you know, again, we're open to other suggestions. So, you know, part of this, so again, thank you for sharing, you know, sharing sort of some of the background on what you're thinking in terms at the City of Fernie. And, you know, if there's a movement now away from Imagine Kootenai, then, you know, by all means, like we're here really to bring value to regional district. And so this is our idea, but if there's a better idea, let's go with it.
Thank you, Ingrid. I've got my list, electronic list. Are there directors that are on the electronic list that would have a question before we let Ingrid go?
Oh, yes, Chair.
Oh, Director Klovetek, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that IK piece. You know, my thought as chair of IK and being involved in this project too is that there's already that digital presence. There's a lot of money that has been invested over the last 15 years in IK in having that presence, and you know, the business retention and expansion has been to some degree part of that. The local intel aggregator that's there on IK, the workforce information that's available. So it seemed to me to be a natural, IK being a natural funnel. And there are communities throughout the basin that don't have the, you know, the economic development sites and the infrastructure that some of you may have to put this information at. And it's just another way for this information to be easily accessible and consistently accessible throughout the regional district and the basin for that matter. So I just, to me, it was a natural fit that's where the information could reside.
Directors, further questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Ingrid, for taking the time. Very exciting project. I'm pretty impressed with how far you've gotten, and we'll look forward to when you get it completed, come back and fill us in again.
Great. Well, and I'm hoping that again, folks will all of you inside of your local governments that there will be the bandwidth to help us bring this to completion, because you know, it's all sort of again subject to getting the final bits of data, the data checking, so that we can take this live.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks so much,
Okay.
and wishing you all a great
Thank you very much,
afternoon.
and you
All right.
stay safe. Okay,
Likewise.
yeah, thank you.
And our next delegation today is Michael Murphy with BDO Canada LLP regarding the 2019 financial statements and statement of financial information report.
Thank you.
Michael, where are you? Oh, there you are.
I'm
Good
here.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, Director Gate. I'm just going to share my screen as well and just work through the agenda just a little bit. Okay.
Yes, we're okay. Status of audit?
Yeah. So I believe it's page 20 of the agenda for people that that can't see and are following along elsewhere. So yeah. So as of today, the audit is substantially complete. There's a couple of housekeeping items we need to complete. We require the signed management representation letter from CFO Ronquist. And my audit team has been diligently working today to complete subsequent events or review working from home. And then the other thing, the ask of the board is approval of these financial statements. The scope of our audit is substantially the same as our planning report, as well as prior year's audit. There's still levels of unpredictability factored in there, but with the controls that the regional district has, there's no need to change the audit plan substantially. With respect to independence, we have already communicated our independence. We do assist with the preparation of the financial statements. However, everything is still signed off by CFO Ronquist prior to release of the statements. And so we are confirming our independence as of today's date. With respect to materiality ended up sitting at $600,000, which is based on 2.5% of our expenditures. And so I sometimes feel like there could be a $600,000 error. There were no errors identified. That's just guidance that we use. And when you think that amortization is a $1.3 million estimate, $600,000 isn't actually all that big. So as I mentioned, with respect to our audit findings, there were no aggregate misstatements that were identified. So that's always good news. And as mentioned, CFO Ronquist will be providing us with representation that she's told us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even while working from home. Then as we cover fraud, our audit itself does not, it's not your fraud prevention. You can't rely on your auditors just to say, hey, there's no fraud because we have an audit. However, we definitely want to work with the board and with management to make sure that if there are any suspicions, that we design tests to try to confirm or relieve any concern with that. In any event, we do put procedures in place to make sure that management's not overriding controls, and I'm happy to report that we did not uncover any instances of fraud with respect to that. Internal control matters, we test controls, they're documented, and we rely on them. With respect to our management letter, we've typically been submitting a clean management letter. There will be one issue that we put on this year that's been consistent through most municipalities with respect to risk mitigation and cybersecurity. So that will be provided to Director Ronquist to make sure that that municipalities, just when we look at the East Kootenays, many municipalities don't have dedicated IT departments. And we're seeing that the SOFI, while it's a great document, is a fraudster's paradise, as it shows, a number of key piece of information that people can use to phish and change vendors. So we just want to make sure that that's top of mind to make sure that you're not making the news for the wrong reasons. And then BDO resources, while you're working from home, if you want to read up on public sector accounting, there are some publications we have. So I'm just going to then move, the appendix is just our auditor's report. It's the same as last year, moved up a year. There are no concerns. It's a clean audit report pending approval of the statements. And then I'm just going to go into the financial statements briefly. So as we move to page number 31 in the agenda, Just looking at the statement of financial position, there's been an increase in cash. I'll cover that in the cash flow statement. With respect to accounts receivable, it's gone down about just shy of $3 million. Lots of PEP grant funding was outstanding last year, and that's been received. When we look at our payables, there was some work in process last year for some diking and whatnot that is no longer on the books right now. But with your payables, it's gonna definitely vary from year to year just on timing of projects. Short-term borrowing, $4.5 million with respect to Windermere Water was repaid during the year. Long-term debt, the new borrowing was 2.5 for Elkford, 2 million for Cranbrook, and 3 million for RDEK. And then just the normal principal repayments offset that. And when we look at tangible capital assets, $2.5 million in additions, $1.5 million in amortization. The main additions were about $600,000 rebuilding the Kimberley transfer station, $340,000 with respect to Westside Legacy land improvements, and then $200,000 of computer purchases. And then moving on to our statement of operations, when we look at the budget revenues, it's 3.65 and actual is 3.63, so very close to budget. A couple of areas where budget and actual deviated. Provincial government grants, there were a few grants that were budgeted for that were not received. Some of them were, bear with me as I just try to find my notes. There was 1 million budgeted for Westside Legacy and 1 million for Windermere Water funding that has not yet been approved and received, or approved at all. Received is irrelevant. The other area that kind of offsets that decrease is the other sale of services and fees, $3.6 million, which is double budget. When we look at the majority of that, there's definitely an increase in construction and demolition in the Columbia Valley, which was higher than budgeted. And there were some additional fees with respect to tech depositing septage into Hosmer Ponds. So those are the main differences in revenues. When it comes to expenditures, general administration is about $2 million short of budget. Some of the things that didn't happen, there were a number of community projects budgeted at $642,000 that didn't happen. Some discretionary grants and aid that weren't awarded as budgeted. There's $200,000 budget for rural dividend grants that did not start, and $500,000 earmarked from Community Works funding that did not go forward as paid, and $420,000 budget for rural internet that was deferred. That's the biggest change. Development and transportation services is the other one. It's down $700,000. And it's a number of little things, the biggest one being there was $80,000 budgeted for St. Mary's Meadowbrook connectivity that was deferred, and a number of smaller budget items. So the budget for expenditures was $3 million less. And so when we look at our annual surplus budget is $4 million, actual $7 million. So still very strong financial results. And as I mentioned, I'll just go down to the statement of cash flows here. Just to show what our change in cash was. So when we look at operations, there was 10 million, so our surplus being $7 million, there's another $3 million that was just the change in our working capital between receivables and payables and whatnot. So $10 million of cash brought in from operating, 2.5 spent on tangible capital assets, and then 1.9 net in repayment of our debt. So cash, and that explains the increase in cash of $5.8 million. And then what follows is all the notes that provide support to all the balances on the statement of financial position and whatnot. The last thing I'll just draw attention to is going to be on page number 47 of the agenda, and that's with respect to subsequent events. I mean, as we all know, we're all working from home right now, and so it's just saying that there's definitely some uncertainty going forward as to what the impact could be on financial results. There's no impact on the 2019 results because they're a point in time, and at that point in time, COVID wasn't on the radar yet. So this is just to let the users know that there could be some definite changes going forward. And I know from talking with CFO Ronquist and reviewing some of the briefings that are posted on the RDK website that she's done a very diligent job of making sure that the operational cash flows will sustain the regional district through this pandemic. So I will open up the floor to questions now, if anyone would like.
Yes, and I don't have anybody in my speaker list. Michael, and to CFO Ronquist, who's in the room with us now, I'd like to thank you both very much on behalf of the board. Doing this from home is very difficult, and I think you were able to, Michael, get in for 1 week before we locked you out. But to keep this on time, I think we've had some, the province is cutting us a little slack, but we're going to do it on time, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much for the effort on our staff as well as your staff, because it can't be easy.
Absolutely, a big debt of thanks to the management RDK to make this work while we're all, adjusting to working from home. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Any questions, directors? Okay, and Michael, we're going to move to 8.2, and we'll see what the vote might be on this.
Okay, so item 8.2, that the 2019 Regional District of East Kootenay financial statements and statement of financial information be approved.
I'm going to ask Director Miller moved. I'm going to get a seconder. Director Wilkes, thank you. Discussion. Okay, and we're going to get our, okay, your vote's coming.
Do you have the speakers list open still?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let me just reload this page. Okay, vote is opening right now, everybody.
Shannon, I wasn't logged in, so
Okay.
I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, if you can't get in, or if you want to vote orally, go ahead. You can do that as well.
And Director Reinhardt, you said you are in favor, correct?
I am.
Okay, closing the vote, and 15 are in favor. The motion carries.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Michael, for all your work, and I thank your company.
Okay, so we're moving back up to section 6, correspondence.
Okay, directors, anything on correspondence? Don't see any hands, and I don't see anything on the list. We'll keep moving then.
Okay, moving to item 8.1. Recommendation is option number 1, that the request from the Bull River Barbecue Rancher Society to reallocate a portion of the 2019-2020 Columbia Basin Trust Affected Areas Program grant to purchase additional supplies and training aids for the riding arena be approved.
Moved by Director Gay, second Director Walter. Discussion. So I just want to tell you folks, I think many of you have been at ribbon cuttings and stuff, but I've never been at a rope cutting. But when we opened this new riding arena, we cut the rope, so we didn't have the right tools, but we got it done. So that was a first for me. Further discussion? Okay, I think we can go to the vote.
Okay. Just one moment, sorry, need to reload this. Seems to have a delay. Chair, is the speakers list closed right now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, one moment, it's not thinking it is on my side. Oh, just one moment. It looks like the correspondence speakers list is open. Let me deactivate that. There we go. The vote is opening now.
That was my fault.
to log in the same way. Yep.
Anybody not able to vote online, just
Uh,
let us know.
just log in like you normally would, Director Reinhardt. To eScribe. Director Kwalitza, do you see the voting screen? I don't see a vote from, I can't hear you right now. You're unmuted. You're mute.
Dr. Kalitza, are you with us?
Oh, never mind. I see it. Yep, I have her vote now.
Okay, we're good, thank you.
And Director Reinhardt, I'm just recording her vote in favor manually. The vote is now closed. We have 15 votes in favor, and the vote is carried. Moving now to item 8.3. That the RDK financial statements for the period January to March 2020 be accepted.
Mover. Director Walter moves, we've got Director McCarricker seconds. Discussion. Maybe I'll ask CFO Ronquist just to give us a brief summary of how we're doing after the first quarter.
Like I have to do this again?
Still not hearing you, Holly.
Yes, there we go. So today we're reviewing the financial statements for January 1st to March 31st of 2020. And this review takes on a new importance as we monitor the financial impacts of COVID-19 to the RDEK. And I've tried to put comments in this report for you on some of the things that I have seen. So services that depend on property tax as the primary source of revenue will show an overall deficit in these reports until the property tax requisitions are issued in April. In several services, more than 25% of the administration and overhead budget has been spent, and that's due to insurance premiums and association dues being paid at the start of the year. The first quarter statements will not show payments for debentures or interest on debentures. The first payments start in April, so that'll be the next quarter. Some statements you might notice show a negative value in the 2020 column, in the actual column, and that's due to the prior year expense accrual entry being offset by the invoice normally in 2020, but we have not received those invoices yet in 2020. There seems to be a bit of a delay on some of those. Our prior period surpluses have not been brought forward from 2019. We will do that shortly after the audit's complete, and they'll show up in the second quarter statements. So for the first 3 months of the year, building inspection fees are $106,721, which is 26% of the 2020 budget, compared to just under $46,000 or 13% for quarter one in 2019. And our operational costs are at 17%, just over $162,000. Fire departments, all of the expenditures are below budget for the first quarter. Salaries and benefit costs are below budget for all fire departments. Expenditures in the Columbia Valley Fire Services are 4 to 7% lower than in the first quarter of last year. And South Country and Elk Valley Fire Departments are all down 1 to 2% from the first quarter of last year. You'll note under the Fairmont Fire Department, the first payment on the water tender's been made. That was 33% of the cost, so just under $128,000. For our solid waste subregions, we've been watching what's been happening with the recycle market. And in January 2020, the contractor absorbed an average cost of $53.01 per ton. RDEK continued to pay the $321.75 per ton. Information at the time of this report for February and March was not yet available. Looking at Columbia Valley Solid Waste, the revenues are just over $48,000, which is 19% of the 2020 budget, and that's up compared to quarter one of 2019, which was $23,000 or 12%. And the operational costs are sitting at 13%, which is $291,000. So the Kootenay National Park normally contributes to solid waste revenues, and it's based on an average tonnage per year. And the amount budgeted for Columbia Valley Solid Waste for 2020 was $36,000. So that invoice will have to be prorated due to COVID-19, And depending on what dates the parks reopen, we'll do that prorated calculation. So we're going to see some reduction in revenue there. For Central Solid Waste, the revenues are just under $164,000, which is 21% of the 2020 budget, compared to $149,000 or 20% last year. Operational costs are sitting just under $559,000, which is 13% of the budget. And also here, the operators for the provincial parks in Central Solid Waste subregion normally contribute to the solid waste revenues based on average tonnage. And we will also have to adjust that amount. We were expecting $27,000. Depending on when those parks reopen, will be that's how much we will calculate that revenue for. Elk Valley Solid Waste, the revenues are just under $25,000, which is 21% of the budget, compared to under $32,000 or 39% in Q1 2019. So we're seeing some lower revenues there. Operating costs are $373,000 for this quarter. Area A septage is seeing an increase. We're at $120,000 or 30% of the budget, compared to $75,000 or 25% last year. And the operating costs are all looking good within budget. I just put a note in here for Elk Valley Victim Assistance, just to note that we are back on track. There is a contractor that has been working right from the start of the year, and expenditures are coming in as they normally would. For planning, fees and charges are just under $24,000 or 32% of the budget, compared to $24,000 or 37% of the budget last year, so quite comparable. Operational costs are $223,000 for this year. And in transit, the revenues for Columbia Valley Transit are $3,237 or 27% of the budget. And for Elk Valley Transit, they're $3,803, which is 25% of the budget. The big concern here is that the transit fare collection was discontinued on March 21st due to COVID-19. So this is going to result in a loss of revenue in 2020, but it will be to a fairly limited extent, as the amount of fares that we collect are relatively low compared to the entire budget. And the fares for Columbia Valley budgeted for 2020 are $12,000 and $15,000 for the Elk Valley. Columbia Valley Recreation fees for Eddie Mount Memorial Arena are just under $50,000 or 24% for this year so far. And that's down compared to just under $56,000 last year. We lost 2 weeks of revenue due to the COVID pandemic. Operational costs for the entire service are a little bit lower than last year. They're at $169,000. So also due to the COVID-19, the Eddie Mount Memorial Arena closed 6 weeks early this year, and that will result in some reduced revenues. The loss of revenue will be offset in part by reducing operating costs. And the ice is normally put back on the first week of July, and then we start selling ice about the third week of July. So as we get close to this time frame, we're going to really be watching the provincial restrictions and what potential effect that will have on revenue, and we may have to consider some changes to operations as a result. Utilities, overall water sewer services are on track to meet our budgeted fees, and operating expenditures are also on track with, and they're 1 to 5% below last year, actually, with the exception of Windermere, which is 3% higher. Edgewater Water is 2% higher, and then Rushmere is 7% higher. And Rushmere has more to do with the administrative work for the parcel tax bylaw. For capital projects, we've spent just under $331,000 for the first quarter of the year. And then moving into community works funds, there is $1.45 million in approved projects that are still outstanding, and we have an uncommitted balance of $2.1 million. That is the end of the report. Are there any questions?
Directors, any questions? I think you must have answered them all. We have a mover and a seconder, so I'll deactivate this and we go to a vote. I think.
sorry, just one moment. We have, looks like we have might have a wayward speakers list according to the system. So I was trying to fix it. Okay, voting is opening right now. All the votes are in. Closing the vote. 15 votes are in favor, 0 opposed. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Item 8.4. So this is an update on the Regional District of East Kootenay cash flow from April 2020.
Okay, any questions on the cash flow? Okay, we'll continue bringing those on a monthly basis, I think, as we go through this, if we can. Okay.
The next item is 8.5. Recommendation is option number 1, that a Community Emergency Preparedness Fund joint grant application for $100,000 be submitted for training and the purchase of necessary equipment and supplies to support Regional Emergency Support Services teams with the Regional District of East Kootenay to provide overall grant administration.
Mover, Director Sturzer moved, Director Klobuchar seconds. Discussion. Okay, I guess we'll call a vote.
Sorry, just a moment. Still having some of the lag on some speakers list, so just a moment. Okay, the vote is opening. I have 3 directors who have not voted. You didn't, Director Walter Reinhardt, you didn't get the voting
Nope, I'm
screen?
in favor.
Okay. Director Kwalitsa, did you get the voting screen? No? Okay,
No,
I'm gonna,
it's just on the, oh,
Okay, so her internet is kind of coming and going because she's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. Director Kwalitsa, I'll take your vote verbally. Oh, never mind.
it just
Yes,
came through.
ma'am.
The last time too, I clicked, I know I feel like a child right now, going, I clicked and I hit submit, and then when you said it didn't go, I don't know what happened.
Not a worry, I have your vote now. Thank you. Director Reinhardt, what is your vote? In favor? Director Walter? In favor? Thank you. All the votes are in. Closing the vote. We have 15 votes in favor, 0 opposed. The motion is carried. Item 8.6. That the check register for the RDK general account for April 2020 in the amount of $2,403,627.72 be approved as paid.
Director Sturzer, Director Wilks seconds. Discussion. Any checks there catch anybody's attention? Director Wilks. You're still muted, Dave.
Yeah.
There you go.
Check ETF 04494. Quite the name. Bang the table. $16,800. What is that?
Did you hear that, or do you want him to say again? You're kind of echoing, Director Wilks. If you try that again.
Sure. Am I still echoing?
Yes.
Someone in there must have their mic on. I don't have anything on in here. Anyways, check number EFT 04499 made out to the Bang the Table in the amount of $16,800.
Who was it made out to?
Bang the table.
Oh,
Okay, well,
Quite an imaginative name, but The hell?
That's the RDK engagement platform.
Did you hear that? It's our engagement platform.
So it's that's an annual fee that we pay, starting last year.
Could we come up with a better name than Bang the Table? Like it doesn't provide any understanding of where that money's going. Sean, quit laughing.
Did we give a better explanation of what we're getting for this money? I think that's the question.
Well,
So that is our engagement platform. So if the directors recall, when we did the solid waste management plan last year, we had all of those awesome software abilities for people to do surveys and get information. And that provides us with that platform every year.
Oh, okay. Any further questions, more clarification, Director Wilkes?
No, that's fine.
Okay, others, questions? Okay, we'll go to the vote then.
The vote is opening.
did you get it? No? Nope, but I got it once.
Neither of you have gotten it either?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to close the vote and take Director Reinhardt. What is your vote?
I'm in favor.
In favor? Director Walter?
In favor.
Thank you. Vote is now closed. 15 votes in favor, 0 opposed. Motion is carried. Item 8.7. That a letter of support be provided to Wings Over the Rockies for their application to the Canadian Museum of Nature's Inspiration Awards.
Looking
I'll
for a
move
mover
that.
and a seconder. Director
Director
Polchak
Wilkie.
moves. Director Wilkie seconds. Discussion.
That's what,
Okay, so call the
wonderful,
question.
wonderful organization. I hope they get the award.
The vote is opening.
It worked once.
I thought you were going to go swing at her or something.
Okay, Director Walter, what is your vote?
I support it.
Director Reinhardt?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Closing the vote, 15 votes in favor, 0 opposed. The motion is carried. Item 8.8. So this is an update regarding the East Kootenay Regional Emergency Operations Center, COVID-19 update, sorry.
Okay, is Fiona, are you with us? Maybe not in the middle. So, directors, I hope you had a chance to read the letter. The bottom line is that we would like to have a policy group meeting with all of us as well as the First Nations. And what we're suggesting is be one individual from each community as well, or, excuse me, two. So your CAO or whoever you choose, as well as one of the elected officials. Now, we have never done this before. I'll take on the role of chairing it. We've often have an emergency in, let's say in Elkford, so Mayor McCarricker and myself and maybe the area A director would be the policy team because it would only impact that part of the region. But because of the COVID pandemic is impacting all of us, we would like to have a policy discussion. And what the purpose of that would be is just to have the EOC people, we see it every day, but these are their priorities, and do we agree with their priorities? Because, the things are starting to change. We know we're going to hear some I guess, loosening up a little bit maybe next week. And we need to be, I think, in tune with that. So the suggestion is to have our meeting toward the end of next week, Thursday or Friday, so we can let the province, provide their information, so we'll be very current on it. So that's the request, and certainly if people have any questions about that, we could probably do a doodle poll or whatever to pick a time and date. I'm suggesting it's probably not going to be an hour. I think we probably should set aside about 90 minutes. There'd be quite a bit to talk about, and with a large group like that, and again with our First Nation friends joining us. Hopefully they'll join us. It could be a large group. So I'll leave the interview at that, and maybe I'll let our CEO fill us in a little bit more if need be. Go ahead, Sean, if there's...
Fiona's on now.
Pardon?
Fiona's
Oh, Fiona, okay, she's there. Fiona, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
Yeah, maybe if you want to just kind of provide a little bit more than I did.
Chair Gay, I thought you did a great job there explaining the purpose of the meeting. The REOC has, as you know, been activated for the past, oh my goodness, 6 weeks. We've been working.
Manager, we're not able to hear you.
Oh,
Try again. No, that's
Yeah,
better
no,
than that time we
You
did.
can definitely hear.
We can hear
I can
fine.
hear loud and clear.
I can hear.
okay.
Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Can
Loud
you
and clear
people
from
hear?
here.
Yeah, thumbs up if you can. Yeah, get the majority, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. As you know, we've had the regional EOC activated for the last 6 weeks. We've been working hard with all of your staff to attempt a coordinated approach to this very complex and unprecedented emergency. We're learning a lot as we go and taking the lead from the province, but also working to understand what the regional local priorities are as well. So yes, the purpose of the policy group meeting next week would be to hear your feedback on if you think we're on track with those priorities, and also to provide an open discussion around the eventual reopening of our region.
Great, thank you. I've got on the speakers list, Director McCormick. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. You mentioned the possibility of a doodle poll. One did come out earlier today, right?
Yes.
So, okay, so the date hasn't been chosen yet. It will be from the poll, I assume. Awesome. Thanks, Fiona.
Any other questions? Oh, I do have. Our CEO, Talma.
Sure. Thanks, Chair Gay. So yeah, the doodle poll has gone out through CAOs to the municipalities. And so as the Chair Gay mentioned, the intent is that there'd be one elected official from each jurisdiction. Went through that avenue because it could be yourselves, or depending on if there's somebody else interested on your council, it could be them as well. And so we will also include the doodle poll out to our electoral area directors to be participants in that as well. And so then once we get those responses back, we'll finalize the time and let everybody know.
Yeah, and I think from an operational point of view, we will use this room, so because many of us are now getting familiar with us, and we'll have the appropriate staff in attendance as well. So, and otherwise it'll be a Zoom, so you no need to come to town. Yeah, so we'll get that poll and we'll get that done. So thank you on that, and thanks, Fiona, to your staff there, and for all the reports we get every night. That's very much appreciated. And I'll speak a little bit more about that tomorrow on our director's reports. Okay, we're going to get closed, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, we got more? Excuse me, Director Doyle.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Doyle.
Sean there. Will it be a separate doodle poll for the area directors, or is it going to be with the group one?
I'm having trouble understanding you, but I think if you're asking for a doodle poll for the area directors, yes, you will get a doodle poll.
Well, no, it's separate, right? Is it a separate doodle poll?
No. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The COs will get one, but the meeting will be a joint meeting between all of us, municipalities, as well as our First Nations.
Yep, got it.
Same options of times.
Pardon?
Say it'll be the same options of times. We'll just get everybody's input into it.
Yeah, we'll see if we can make it fit. But as I say, if somebody from your council, if you're not available, because I know how busy most of us are, but somebody from your council and your CEO or our senior staff person, be appreciated. Manager Moskal, are we?
Yeah, next item is item number 12. That the meeting adjourned to a closed Governance and Regional Services Committee meeting to consider the following matters: Cranbrook and Kimberley Transfer Stations operations contract, Eastside Lake Windermere Standby Power Contract, Columbia Valley Economic Development Officer Contract, Groundwater Monitoring Contract, and utility costs under Section 91J of the Community Charter, information prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and non-compliance, Still-A-Machine area under Section 91G of the Community Charter, litigation or potential litigation affecting the RDEK.
Mover. Director Reinhardt moved, Director Wilk seconds. Is there anybody in objection? Hearing none or seeing none, motion's carried and we are adjourned. If you could phone back in, you know the rules and we'll get going as soon as you phone back.